Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's form building webinar. My name is Nick, and today's topic is going to be on how to update your forms to utilize autofill. And just as a reminder, if you have any questions as we go along, please hold on to those questions. I will be opening up that chat a little bit later in the webinar, and I'm more than happy to go back over any information, or if I can answer any of those questions, I'm very happy to do so. Let's go ahead and get started. Today we'll be working off of our FormDr training packet. So we'll go down to our Packets and Forms page, and we're going to click the three dots on the right side of our FormDr training packet and edit forms. We already have our packet set up here. This is just one of a template packet as well as a release form, which we can see here. It says template, but we imported those using that template library, so feel free to use those as you wish. But we'll go ahead and go to next to build, as we already have this set up with the tabs that we'll need. And to talk a little bit about updating the forms to autofill, typically will just be used to make it easier on your patients to fill those forms out, as they won't have to fill out the same bit of information on each page that it appears. And you'll also find yourself using this autofill in maybe two separate ways. The one just recently mentioned will be the most common, just updating whether that be a phone number or an address or something like that. Now, to utilize the autofill, all you're going to need to do is ensure that the shortcodes of each element match one another. So anytime an element is added to the form, we can just click and add that text field, or we can click and drag to add one as well. We'll just need one, or we can leave both just for the demonstration. But you'll see here that it's generated a randomized shortcode of letters. This is randomized and to the point that it is not being used anywhere else in this form. So if we were to open that second one that we've added, it will have a completely different randomized code. Now, if we were to copy and paste this code into that same field name area of our other text field, and now that they share that same field name, they will act as one single widget. So we can go to our style page, because our style page is also a live preview of the form, which just basically means if we have any required fields as indicated by that red asterisk and we click past them, we'll be notified with those tags and red outlines. And then all the same, if we have any conditional information, we can also see that, how that's working as well. So this is a great way to test your form. If it's not looking the way that you want it, you can always just go right back to the builder and update that as needed. But to talk about the text fields that we've just updated, all we've done is copied and pasted the shortcode from this text field into the one above it. And so now whenever we write anything in there, it's going to act as one. So these don't have to be on the same tab either. We could have these on separate tabs throughout the form, and as soon as one of them is filled out, all of the rest of them will be filled out as well. So that same process will apply to autofilling any information, and whatever the information may be. Maybe we'll set this one up here. Maybe we also need, the patient phone number or patient social security number and patient address or something like that. So we'll add a couple of text fields in here, and the first one we'll update the title to SSN, and the second one to patient address. And I know I kind of just breezed through that just briefly. All I did was put down a column widget so that I could have multiple elements displayed per row. I placed that signature widget within the column, and then I placed a group widget into that column so that these two fields would not be formatted on that same row, and this would allow them to exist on top of one another in that same column area. So if you're looking to get that type of display, that will be all you need to do. But what we can do here is address, city, state, and zip. And these will just be the placeholders. We have our randomized shortcodes of our field names over here on the right. Same with that social security number, we'll have that randomized shortcode here as well. All right, so what we'll need to do is go back to our first page And we'll see if these have already been set. Since this is a template, they have field names already set. And this is a great opportunity to show you that they do not need to be the randomized shortcode. That randomization just ensures that it's not being used elsewhere in the form and thus preventing any unwanted autofilling from happening. However, if you do want the autofill to happen, you'll just need to make sure to match those shortcodes between elements. Now, that being said, as this one is set to SSN, this will not be able to be used elsewhere in the form. All right, it will be case sensitive. So we can just copy and paste that lowercase ssn and place that into our SSN field on this final tab. And so now they will share that information. I just like to harp on the fact that you can't use this field name again unless you want it to act as this same widget, because if you are going to be collecting any information from, say, a guardian or parent or something like that, and they will have the same field on multiple tabs as well, in that case, I would recommend labeling this accordingly. So maybe I would title this Guardian SSN or GSSN, something different and also memorable, so that if I'm adding another field later on down the form, I'll already know what that field name is and I can go ahead and enter that rather than going back to that other tab to copy and paste whatever was entered before. So you can make this much simpler on you when updating. Just know that each one will only be able to be used for one specific field. But we'll go back to our first tab and we'll grab those address shortcodes, which can be found here. And now you'll notice that the way that these are set up is going to be a bit different. The way that this first address is set up, and just to make it simpler, we'll go ahead and get rid of address 2, since we only have 4 fields in our other address field on the final tab. But you'll notice that this is set up as individual widgets. So our address is one widget, our city is one widget, our state is one widget, and so is the zip. So these are all individual text fields. And in the address field that we have added on our release form, we have just added one element with multiple inputs. Now, each one of these inputs will act as a single element as well, just attached to one. And all I mean by that is that if we were to share those field names, it will still autofill between the widgets, just as long as those field names are the same. So we have these set up here, randomized. Grab that first one, place that into our address field, and then so on and so forth. City. And then I like to make it a little bit easier on myself. If they are going to be randomized like this, you can always just copy and paste the one from the final tab and then replace that city here, or that state, and then just grab the zip, so you can kind of get 2 done at one time. Obviously, if you have 3 or 4, I would recommend just sticking to the original one. But if there are only 2 like we have set up here, it can save you a little bit of time from going back and forth. But we have our placeholders set here, or our placeholders and our field names set here on our patient address field. We also have that set in our SSN field. So we can go back to our style page and we can go fill out those fields. Just as a test, we'll go back to our patient intake form packet, first page, and we can go ahead and enter that social security number very first. And then we can do 123 Street, San Francisco, California, and then whatever your zip is. So once we've entered this information and we advance through the form, if those fields appear anywhere else on the tabs, I would also recommend updating those shortcodes as well. And this will just allow your patient to only have to fill that information out one time. And typically, I see this most commonly used to autofill an address or a social security number, because those, for whatever reason, will tend to be needed on many different forms. But we can go to our release form here, and we can scroll down to our area that we've added, and we have our SSN already entered, and our address has been entered as well. So you'll see that we can set up these a little bit differently in terms of formatting, but as long as we keep those shortcodes the same, that information will autofill as soon as it's filled out, and it will just make it a lot simpler for your patient to go through and fill out the new information that they haven't answered yet. And very much the same if we wanted to autofill that guardian name. If we have that in an earlier area, we can just grab those shortcodes and bring them over. The second way you can use the autofill to update your forms is if you were to have any type of packet that might be split between some kind of identifier, whether that be a male or female or minor or adult, and depending on whatever they have answered, it will present them with a specific set of information. So another way that you can update the forms is by utilizing that autofill just to make it to where your patient is not presented with any information that does not apply to them. Typically you'll see, or I've seen anyway, in the forms that we build, there will be a section for women only or something like that. And so now we can add that to a conditional element and use that autofill throughout the form. And I will explain what I mean here in just one moment, but let's go ahead and get started. Now, the one thing that you'll need to leave out of that conditional is the patient name. That patient name widget is going to be needed to be presented out of a conditional at least once in each form. The name that's entered in the first and last name fields of the patient name is going to be what that submission is logged under on your send and receive page once it's returned to you. So it's very important to only use that patient name widget, that top element, to collect that patient name, and all other names in the form can just be taken with a general text field. But we'll go ahead and make this all conditional. Now, what we will talk about in this specific situation anyway is if the patient is a minor or an adult. So what we'll need to do is collect the same bit of information regardless, right? So we're going to need to know the sex of our patient, their social security number, date of birth, all of the rest of this. We can also leave that emergency contact, the employment information we can leave for adult. So what we'll do here is at the end of the information that is going to need to be collected for both sets of patients, we can add a select option question. This will allow this to be conditional, and we can update this to say, is the patient a minor? And now if they answer yes, they are a minor, we can add in other information that won't be presented if they are an adult. Now, if you do need to collect the same information between two different sets of patients, you can always just open up that column. So we have a full column of information here with two bits inside it. We can just duplicate that using the duplicate button, and it will just duplicate that whole section of information. So now we can place one of these into the adult section and one of them into the minor section. And regardless of what answer they give us, we'll still collect that information. So maybe a better example would be the emergency contact information. So we could just pull all of this into the yes, all of this one into the no. The patient is not a minor, but if the patient's a minor, maybe we need to collect some parental information as well. So we could put in parent name, phone, relationship, or address, whatever the case may be. You could have your extra bit of information. And I'll just title these all parent for now, just to save us some time, because I know we are running a little bit short towards the end here, just so we know that these are the parent fields. And then maybe there's a consent form that needs to be signed as well. So we could have our signature widget in here, and this is a test just to save us some time. All right, we have our consent form, parental consent. All right. All right, so we have our parental consent form. We need their signature as well. All right. So now if the patient answers, oh, we can have both of these in here as well. And we'll leave that consent form at the end. How about that? In our insurance, we could duplicate as well. Duplicate that column. We'll need insurance from both adult and minor patients. So we can include that as well. And then for our adult, we'll just put that information directly in there. No parental consent on this one. And since we won't need these text fields, we'll go ahead and get rid of those just to clear up our area. But now the form will just work a little bit differently. It will look a lot cleaner, and depending on the information that they select, they'll be presented with that consent form and that parental information. If they select no, they will only get that emergency contact, occupational information, and the insurance questions. All right, now to use autofill with a section like this is maybe there is another consent form that will be later on down the form, and maybe it's that parental consent from earlier, or maybe it's a different one. But what we can do here is, depending on if the patient's an adult or a minor, and we need to get a signature of the parent or of the patient, we'll just use this consent as an example. We'll duplicate that, and we'll just update the titles of these. Ooh, line that left, and this will be patient, signature, and then parent or guardian signature. All right. And we can go ahead and update this as well, which is also a really great time to talk about autofill into a paragraph. So what we're going to do here is we're going to ask for the parent, guardian name, and I'll just use one widget with a couple placeholder or a couple inputs, first name, last name. And if we wanted to autofill this with the parents' names from earlier, we can maybe do parent first and parent last. We'll have to update these earlier on in the field if we do want them to update. But more importantly, we're going to autofill this information into our paragraph here. So you can see it says first name, last name. What's happening here is if we open up that paragraph widget, we can see that those shortcodes are held within a set of brackets. And what that's going to do is those brackets will make that paragraph widget search the form for those specific shortcodes and output the information that's entered into there. It will output by default the placeholder information in the meantime, but how we have it set up here is its first name and last name. Those will be the set field names for the patient name. So whatever the patient name is and they have entered that, it will enter that into that paragraph. So once the patient enters their name on that first page, it will say I, patient first name, patient last name, whatever their first and last name are. Now, if we want this one to be about the parent and enter their information instead, we're just going to use those same brackets. It doesn't have to be italicized, but let's unitalicize it just to make it a little bit easier to see. We will leave it bold, but we're going to use this as parent first and parent last. All right, now whenever the parent or guardian enters their information, it will autofill into that paragraph. At the same time, we're going to set down another single select option, and it doesn't have to say the same thing, but this is going to stem from is the patient a minor question. So we could do minor adult, and then even have the options here changed. So this can say minor adult. However, the values will need to be the same over here. Notice these are not randomized shortcodes for the selection widgets. These will be the values that will be output. So that shortcode will be found up here. So maybe this is minor question for our shortcode, and then we can just have minor and adult as the value. You can also leave it as true and false, which let's go ahead and leave it as true and false just to make it a little simpler. So we'll just change that shortcode to minor question, and we're going to copy and paste that over into the, oh, before we do that, apologies, let's go ahead and bring our information up into our conditional. So if the patient is an adult, we'll put that into the adult, since we'll just need their name and signature. If the patient is a minor, we'll need that parent and guardian signature, so we'll bring this up into the minor answer selection. Now, it's very important to note that once all of the shortcode and the values are set to be exact between those selection options, it's important to note that you're not auto-populating the output of what they have done. You're auto-populating the specific selections. So the way we have this set up is I asked the question in the previous one, is the patient a minor? Yes or no. So yes would be the minor, which is why I have set that first option as minor. So if they select yes, I'm a minor, this minor will already be selected. No would be the adult. But let's go ahead and copy and paste that shortcode into our selection option widget over here. Ensure that our values are both the same as well. And now we'll be able to output different sets of information on different tabs based off of a single selection. So let's go back to our style page. And we can just go take a quick look at that consent page, and all it's going to show right now is that minor or adult question. We'll go back to our first page and we'll select yes. We'll be presented with all of our extra information for the parents, as well as that consent form here. And then when we go to our consent form over on the consent page, we'll have our parental information here. Now, once we enter that parent information, it will enter it into that paragraph because we have those shortcodes set to those brackets. All right, now we can select the adult on this page. And if we go back to our patient intake form packet, it will have changed this selection as well. So again, these will work as the same widget with the same selections, but you can have it look differently with different sets of information contained within those conditionals as well. But this is a really great way to save room. If you have a lot of packets in your account and you want to put a male and female packet together, you can kind of separate it out this way. Also with minor and adult packets, just by adding this extra set of conditional functionality. But I know we are pretty much running short here. I'm going to go ahead and open up that chat. Do you have any questions? Please feel free to get those in. The chat is open. I'm more than happy to answer those. In the meantime, we'll talk about saving the forms and then also our webinar schedule. But once you've made your changes, it's important to go through and publish the form. You'll just want to make sure to click all the way through the builder. If you are on that builder, you'll just want to click next to style, next to publish, and then back to account. The publish page does say publish, but this is just giving you one last opportunity to update the name of the packet or collect any of the other information that you might want to get from this packet on this page. But once you're ready, click that My Account button at the bottom right or the Finish Building, go to My Account. Either one of these is going to take you back to the Send and Receive page, but once you're back on that Send and Receive page, you'll know that those forms and those changes have been saved in the forms. We can go back down to our packets and forms page. And if we went ahead and opened up that live link of the form to the live version of the packet, we can see that those changes have been made. We can also test the form out here as well, whatever we would like to do. All right. And while we wait for any questions to come in, just as a reminder, we do host these form building webinars every Tuesday and Thursday at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. The Tuesday will always be the beginner and Thursday the advanced, but that's not to say that the beginner is a prerequisite or anything like that. We do encourage anyone and everyone to join any of the webinars that they wish to come to, and they are free, so you can join as many as you like, or if you have any coworkers or staff that you would like to learn this information as well, we highly encourage you to send them our way. But you will be able to keep track of our webinar schedule. We also host onboarding webinars where we go through usage of the account. Those are held on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 10:30 a.m. Pacific time, but you can always keep track of the webinar schedule by going to My Account, Support, and then Search Guide. This will take you to our product guide, which can be very helpful and answer many, many questions that a lot of our clients have. But the FormDr updates section down here at the bottom right will take you to our webinar schedules over here on the left. And if we click on that April webinar schedule, this month's topic is editing existing forms. So we will be going through updating different sections of the forms on each specific day. And if you would like to sign up for one, you'll just need to click on that link. It'll take you right to that sign up page for that day. If there is anything that you're interested in learning, but you won't be able to be in attendance for, don't worry about that. We will be posting those videos after the fact as well. Come down to March, for instance, and we have some those posted. The topic of March was going through the elements in the builder. We kind of went through each element in the builder and how to use them. So please feel free to come in and check these out. And if you would like to view one of those videos, you'll just need to click that posted link. It'll take you right to that YouTube page, and we'll have some timestamps at the bottom of that video as well. All right, that will conclude our webinar for today. It does not look like we have any questions, but thank you very much for joining us. And as mentioned earlier, if interested in joining any of the other webinars, or if any staff are interested, or if you're interested in them learning, please feel free to have them or to send them our way. We'd love to have them. But thanks again for joining us today. Hope you all have a great afternoon, and hope to see you all again very soon.